So if you're a fan of hip-hop music, you've probably heard Vic Mensa's name being thrown around quite a lot over the past few years. He is one of those names that is just thrown around though. I wouldn't really say he ever really took the hip-hop game by storm with an amazing project or anything, because he's kind of been pretty mediocre for the most part of his career, and hasn't really broke through with any particular major albums. Now sometimes that can just be due to being underrated or overlooked by the hip hop crowd, because not every artist is going to break through and become hugely successful. But I think Vic Mensa's just really failed to grip people with his rapping style and his songs. His songs are never very good, to be honest. But he did make that Down on My Luck song very many years ago, which was like this really cool combination of hip hop and house that I actually thought worked really well and is easily his most memorable song ever. And it's a real shame to see that no one really ever capitalized on that sound, and he just kind of ditched it almost immediately. And here we are today. What did he ditch that for? He ditched it for 93PUNX. This is literally the definition of an album nobody asked for. There is no one out there that wants this. Vic, please. Any artist that jumps from like hip hop to something as extreme as punk, I think deserves some kind of credit, because it's not really something that's very common, and it's a very risky move, and you deserve some kind of admiration for being ballsy enough to ditch something that you were known for to then go on to something completely new and different. But this does not mean that it's good, because it is not good. There'll be people out there with an album like this that are like, you just don't get it, dude. You just don't get his artistic vision, man. You don't get it. He's spitting some real political shit on this thing. He's screaming. He went from hip hop to punk. This is like artistic genius, dude. Like, he has changed the boundaries of what you can do with music, man. But he hasn't. He's just listened to some pop punk albums from 2002 and thought, yeah, I'm gonna do that, because why not? And fuck, did he do that? He did that. He really did. The style that he's gone for in this album is just similar to what XXXTentacion was doing when he was going more extreme with his kind of like screaming type songs. There isn't really much screaming on this one, really, but it just reminds me of that, because it's the most surface level approach to how you can do that sound. There's not really any creativity going on. There's not really a blend of ideas coming together to make something new. It's just going from a sound to something very different, but you're not doing it that well. And it's worse because of how dated this sounds, because this really is like nu metal from the 2000s mixed with like bands that really were too scared to go heavier than they did, so they just stuck to this kind of like mid-range of like pop punk and punk rock. Bands like Sum 41, for example. But you know what? I would listen to Fat Lip by Sum 41 over anything on this album any day. There is just no contest here. Fat Lip goes hard, and none of this does. The album kicks off in the most obnoxious way possible with the cringiest like vocal chanting that I've heard all year, honestly, with the guy that's like, say punk, say bitch, punk, bitch, punk, bitch. And it just loops on for a little bit, and then, Vic comes through, and then the looped thing comes again as the chorus. That was the chorus for the song, Jesus. But lyrically, it's not even the worst track here, because it's pretty satirical. It's just kind of mocking the idea of a fuckboy. And there are some satirical lyrics throughout the album, actually, which I think some people will probably read as and take it as face value, actually, throughout this album. I can imagine people doing that. But the actual issue is just the way it's presented, because it's not really like tongue-in-cheek. There's no comedic value to anything that's being said here. It's all just said with a straight face, screamed at you in the worst kind of way. The best way to do it is always look at someone like Richie with a T, who just has just natural charisma in terms of like selling a joke. Like, he can say it in the perfect way, and it just immediately gets a laugh out of you because of how you say the line, whereas Vic Mensa just doesn't have the self-awareness to make it funny. Lines like, yeah, I fuck myself and call it masturbation, aren't really that funny to begin with anyway, so the humor is like the lowest common denominator type humor you'd expect from a friggin', you know, Todd Phillips movie, an Adam Sandler movie. Like, it is just that basic. And I mentioned earlier as well, there are some lyrical themes that hit political discussions on this album, kind of like akin to something like Rage Against the Machine would have done back in the day, but Rage Against the Machine, they are not. They're saying shit like, let the bitch burn, burn the White House down. It's just, come on. I mean, just come on. Oh, by the way, this track does feature Tom Morello on it too. I did just mention Rage Against the Machine, and I just have lost respect for this man. How can you drop this low? Why would you be on this song? It sounds awful. The recording quality is some of the worst I've heard all year. A few tracks crop up like this too on the album, where it is just so badly mixed that you just cannot comprehend how someone like Tom Morello would get on this. You know, if the album was bad, right, and Tom Morello just so happened to have a feature on a track that wasn't as bad as the rest, I probably wouldn't really care. But the fact that it might be the worst song here just baffles me. We also get a feature from Good Charlotte, which is just so funny to me because the least punk band you could think of would be Good Charlotte. This is what I mean when I say surface level, like, ideas going into this genre of music, because you would know that they were just a pop band. They were straight through and through a pop band, and this is just like a really, really cheap sounding song. Funnily enough, I did mention XXXTentacion earlier on in the album, but this track actually here, Vic is channeling him in his vocals with the kind of like sad boy type thing going on. It is just really weak. The I Cry 3 track wrapping up the trilogy with I Cry 3 is hitting the emo type levels of this new wave, I think, of like rappers being a bit more comfortable with expressing their emotions. But it's just really, really basic the way it's presented. Once again, I'm using that word where it's just so soft and direct that there isn't really any nuance to it. I totally get that, you know, a younger person might need to hear this, you know, like if you see someone successful saying that, you know, they cry too, you know, they're just like you, then it might hit hard, especially when you're a teenager. But just make the song sound good. That's the least you could do. If you're gonna do this, make the song sound good. Why bring on Francis and the Lights? Why? I swear, every time I've come across Francis and the Lights this year, it has been one of the worst songs I've heard all year. That Banks album, Francis and the Lights cropped up. It was a terrible song on a pretty bad album, but it was easily the worst track. And then on the Chance the Rapper album, we got Francis and the Lights again, just sounding horrendous. I just don't get what this band is. Who are they? Why do they keep coming through to make some of the worst music of the year? I'm just not convinced on this band yet at the minute. They may be good at making their own solo stuff, but I'm in awe of how many times I keep seeing their name on awful songs. To add to the more emo type stuff on the album, we've got the track Fine, or Fine, which stands for fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, which technically actually should be F-U-I-N-E because it's fucked up, but you know, Vic, you didn't think of that one through. And the singing on this one is so blatantly Logic inspired, it sounds like it came straight from the Supermarket album. I cannot believe how much it sounds like Logic. And while I'm on this track, I may as well get to the book of bad lyrics. Let's bring it out, guys. Let's get it. I've already mentioned the masturbation line, but there are plenty of others too. I'm never gonna be alright ×3. But I'm fine. What's that even mean? It's the vaguest shit you could say. Why would you say that? On the track Numb, maybe a reference, a nod to Linkin Park, who knows? They are going for that era with the sound. He says, I brought drugs to the party, but they just don't work like they used to. I just don't care about this. Like, the line isn't that bad. But at the same time, I just also don't really care. The whole song as well is just a boring story about going to a party and shit. It just is the worst. I love this one from Loco, the guest feature, on the track Fist Fight. I'd be throwing hands like Mr. Fantastic. Do not ruin Mr. Fantastic's name. He is a legend. The Incredibles do not deserve a reference on this album. But the chanting vocals on that track, fist fight in a parking lot, fist fight in a parking lot, was definitely an entertaining moment for the album for sure. 16 Shots got him shook like Mobb Deep. I mean, you can just make better references to older artists than this. This is just really weak. Chase Pussy like I'm playing in traffic. I still don't get that line. On the last track, this is the best line on the whole album. The best 2 words on the last track. The greatest 2 words you will ever hear. On a track where he's just telling everything goodbye. Goodbye to punk rock. Goodbye the internet. One of the things he says is goodbye racism. Goodbye racism. Why would you say that? What are you doing? What an album this was. Jesus Christ. I am telling you, if you are adamant on Chance the Rapper and Logic having the worst albums of the year, you've got to hear this before you say things like that, man, because this might be the worst so far. Again, I will say I respect the bravery of jumping into a sound like this, you know, because you're going out of your comfort zone and you're trying something new. That's always respectable, but it just sounds bad. Like, that's it. It's just bad. I'm gonna go 2 out of 10. This is easily in the top 3 worst albums I've heard this year. Let me know what you think of the album. If you like it, then, you know, maybe write a review for Kerrang! Magazine and tell me why you like it there. Thank you for watching my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. Let me know what you think of the album. Have a good day. Subscribe and goodbye.